CinemaSynopses. Spoiler alert! The planet Krypton, unstable from years of industrial mining, faces impending destruction.
Krypton's core is collapsing.
Jor-El, chief advisor to Krypton's Supreme Council, recommends the Council give him control of the genetics codex.
I will ensure the survival of our race.
Before any action can be taken, soldiers, led by General Zod, an old friend of Jor-El's, launch an uprising and arrest the counselors.
You've taken up the sword against your own people.
Realizing that Krypton is doomed, Jor-El steals genetic codes sought by Zod.
Breaching the Genesis chamber is a Class B crime.
And infuses them into the DNA of his infant son, Kal-El, the first naturally born Kryptonian child in centuries.
We have had a child, Zod.
Heresy!
And he will be free to forge his own destiny.
Donning his old armor, Jor-El sacrifices his life to allow his son to escape on a pre-programmed spacecraft. Zod orders the rocket's destruction,
Bring that ship down!
only to learn that forces loyal to the Council have suppressed the rebellion.
Your forces are surrounded.
In a brief trial, Zod and several of the surviving rebels are convicted of treason and sentenced
to 300 cycles of somatic reconditioning
to the Phantom Zone, moments before Krypton explodes. Following Jor-El's coordinates, the ship crash lands on Earth in Smallville, Kansas. A childless couple, Jonathan and Martha Kent, find Kal-El and raise him as their own, naming him Clark. Clark eventually becomes an isolated young man as a result of developing superhuman powers.
What's wrong with me, Mom?
He then learns his true origins from Jonathan,
That it's not from this world, Clark, and neither are you.
who urges him to keep his powers hidden.
When the world finds out what you can do, it's going to change everything.
Several years later, Jonathan dies in a tornado while refusing to let Clark rescue him. Burdened with guilt and looking for a new purpose in his life, Clark leaves to travel the world for an extended period of time under several disguises.
Can you imagine how people on this planet would react if they knew there was someone like this out there?
Several months later, Metropolis Daily Planet reporter Lois Lane receives an assignment to investigate the discovery of a Kryptonian scout ship in the Canadian Arctic.
Temperatures drop to -40 at night around here.
Disguised as a worker, Clark enters the ship and activates its central computer using a key left by Jor-El.
Hello?
Which allows him to communicate with an artificial intelligence modeled after his father.
I am your father, Cal.
The AI explains that Clark was sent to Earth to guide its people,
You will help them accomplish wonders.
and presents him with a Kryptonian uniform bearing his family's symbol.
The symbol of the House of El means hope.
While following Clark, Lois inadvertently triggers the ship's security system. Clark uses his powers to rescue Lois
It's all right, it's all right, it's all right.
before wearing the uniform and testing his flying abilities. Unable to convince Supervisor Perry White to publish an article on the incident,
I can't print this, Lois. I'm not running a story about aliens walking among us.
Lois tracks down Clark and agrees to keep his secret safe.
What if I don't want my story told?
Escaping the Phantom Zone, Zod and his crew intercept a transmission from the scout vessel and travel to Earth.
Whoever's at the helm of that thing is looking to make a dramatic entrance.
Deducing that Kal-El is nearby, they broadcast a global address demanding that he surrender or risk war.
I request that you return this individual to my custody. Surrender within 24 hours.
Clark meets with the United States Army and agrees to comply,
I'll surrender, but only if you guarantee Lois's freedom.
with Lois joining him as a hostage.
General Zod would like this woman to accompany me.
Zod reveals that he possesses advanced terraforming equipment,
Even a world engine.
salvaged from Kryptonian outposts, which he intends to use to transform Earth into a new Krypton.
so that Krypton can live again.
His science officer, Jack Sur, extracts Clark's genes to create Kryptonian colonists who will annihilate humanity and build a society based on Zod's ideals of genetic purity.
I don't think they're interested in sharing this world.
With help from Jor-El, Clark and Lois flee.
You can save a cow. You can save all of them.
And warn the U.S. military.
This man is not our enemy.
Thank you, Colonel.
Just as Zod orders an invasion, Cal fights with Zod's soldiers.
And if history has proven anything, it is that evolution always wins.
And defeats them. Jack Sur reveals that the Codex was never in an object, but hidden within Clark's own body when he was a baby by his father.
All of Krypton's air, living, hidden in one refugee's body.
Zod unleashes the terraforming world engine upon the Earth.
Release the world engine.
Clark is given the codename Superman.
Superman?
That's what they're calling him, Superman.
Zod visits the Genesis chamber and tells Jor-El his plans for Earth.
I will harvest the Codex from your son's corpse. I will rebuild Krypton.
Clark destroys the terraforming platform.
If you destroy this ship, you destroy Krypton! Krypton had its chance!
While his human allies launch a suicide attack.
A good death is its own reward.
Killing Zod's troops. With the ship destroyed and Krypton's only hope of revival gone,
We could have built a new Krypton, but you chose the humans over us.
Zod vows to destroy the Earth and its inhabitants.
I'm going to make them suffer, Cal.
Zod fights Superman, and in the process, they both destroy downtown Metropolis.
Either you die or I do.
They then crash into a train station, where Zod attempts to kill some passengers.
Never.
Forcing Superman to snap his neck, killing him. Superman persuades the government to let him act independently, so long as he does not turn against humanity.
Look, I'm here to help.
To allow access to dangerous situations without attracting attention, Clark takes a job as a freelance reporter for the Daily Planet.
This is Clark Kent. Good luck, kid.
Keep watching for some fun Easter eggs and trivia on Man of Steel. In an early Smallville scene near the Kent house, a truck passing by in the background bears the LexCorp brand name. Also, a building in Metropolis and a tanker truck later bear the same name as well. This is the company run by Superman's arch rival, Lex Luthor. Henry Cavill naturally has a hairy chest and left it untouched for the shoot of this movie. He insisted that Superman has chest hair in this film. He rejected the notion that just because you are muscular, you should not have chest hair, and cited the Superman comic book, The Death of Superman, as being an iconic representation in which Superman had a hairy chest. When Clark is first learning to fly, he is only able to make a few gigantic bounds. In the first few Superman comics in 1938 to 39, he was not able to fly, but could only leap 1/8 of a mile like a high-powered kangaroo. The first cartoons and movies decided that this looked undignified and made him fly, which looks more majestic, even though physics give no logical reason for him to have this ability. The Fortress of Solitude in this film is a Kryptonian spacecraft secreted in the Arctic. This combines various comic versions of the Fortress of Solitude, an Arctic location with a key, like in the Silver Age comics in 1958, an artifact from previous Kryptonians, like The Adventures of Superman in 1989, and an abandoned ship, like in the New 52 comics of 2011. The Kryptonian ship had one pod left open before Clark entered. It was revealed in a promotional comic book that the ship was once occupied by Clark's cousin, Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, possibly indicating her appearance in a forthcoming installment. If it is true, it would mean that she is at least 18,000 years old, according to the carbon dating of the ship. A Kryptonian living this long is no surprise, as some of the comics tell us that Superman lives to be at least over 80,000 years old, and is essentially immortal as long as the sun remains yellow. The film released in June 2013, the 75th anniversary of Superman.